every crime is a wound on the world. We're here to dissect it, layer by layer, to find the truth buried within. This is Anatomy of Crime. Imagine a subterranean river of refined energy. It is a continuous, unseen flow of gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel pulsing beneath the soil of the American South and the eastern seaboard. This is the Colonial Pipeline, a colossal marvel of modern engineering spanning over 5,500 miles from Texas to New Jersey. Every single day, it quietly transports over 100 million gallons of fuel. It is the lifeblood of the East Coast, supplying nearly half of the region's transportation fuels. It keeps commercial airliners in the sky, long-haul trucks on the highways, and commuters moving. From the outside, it appears as an invincible physical titan, a sprawling network of steel, concrete, and immense pumping stations, seemingly immune to anything short of a massive physical catastrophe. Yet in May of 2021, this titan was brought to its knees. It was not stopped by a physical explosive, a natural disaster, or a kinetic act of war. It was paralyzed by a string of malicious digital code. A phantom intrusion slipped through an unguarded digital doorway, locking away the data required to keep the fuel flowing safely. Today, we dissect the anatomy of ransomware and critical infrastructure vulnerability. We will methodically explore how a cybercriminal syndicate, known as DarkSide, weaponized a single compromised password to trigger nationwide panic, and we will examine the unprecedented federal operation to claw back the ransom from the dark web. To truly understand the magnitude of this vulnerability, we must first examine the anatomy of the pipeline's operational structure. The Colonial Pipeline operates on two distinct yet interconnected networks. The first is the Operational Technology Network. This is the industrial control system, a complex web of sensors, valves, and automated pumps that physically govern the pressure and flow of millions of gallons of highly combustible liquid. This network requires absolute precision. A miscalculation in pressure could lead to a catastrophic rupture or explosion. The second network is the Information Technology System. This is the corporate side, managing the administrative tasks, human resources, billing, and the crucial ticketing system that tracks exactly whose fuel is moving through the pipes and how much they owe. While the Operational Technology Network physically moves the fuel, the Information Technology Network dictates the logistics and the financials. Modern critical infrastructure relies on a delicate bridge between these two worlds. The billing systems need data from the physical sensors to generate invoices. However, this interconnectedness creates a profound vulnerability. If the administrative network is compromised, the operator may lose visibility into the physical network or lose the ability to safely bill for the product being transported. The genesis of the attack did not begin with a highly sophisticated cinematic zero-day exploit. It began with an oversight. Sometime before the attack, the perpetrators acquired a single password linked to a legacy virtual private network account. This VPN profile had been created to allow employees remote access to the Colonial Pipeline corporate network. The account was no longer in active use, but critically, it had not been deactivated by the IT department. Furthermore, and perhaps most devastatingly, this account did not employ multi-factor authentication. There was no secondary prompt, no text message code, and no biometric check required to log in. It relied solely on a username and a password. How the attackers obtained this password remains a subject of investigation, though it is highly probable it was swept up in a previous data breach of a completely separate website or service. A common vulnerability when users reuse passwords across multiple platforms. With this single key, the attackers walked through the front door of the corporate network. The entity waiting on the other side of that login was a group known as DarkSide. To understand DarkSide is to understand the modern, highly corporatized evolution of cybercrime. DarkSide was not a rogue hacker in a basement. It was a structured criminal enterprise operating under a business model known as Ransomware as a Service. In this model, the core developers of the ransomware do not necessarily conduct the attacks themselves. Instead, they create the malicious software, manage the payment portals on the dark web, and maintain the infrastructure. They then lease this software to affiliates, independent contractors of the cyber underworld. These affiliates are the ones who break into the networks, deploy the ransomware, and negotiate with the victims. When a ransom is paid, the core developers take a percentage as a commission, often around 20 to 30%, while the affiliate keeps the lion's share. This franchising model allows for rapid scaling of operations and creates a terrifyingly efficient global industry of extortion. DarkSide operated with a chillingly corporate veneer. They maintained a public relations website on the dark web where they published press releases. They had a code of conduct, explicitly forbidding their affiliates from targeting hospitals, schools, or government entities, a hollow attempt to frame themselves as ethical criminals who only targeted large, profitable corporations. They even offered a help desk for their victims, providing technical support to guide panicked executives through the process of acquiring cryptocurrency and decrypting their files. It is a surreal juxtaposition of professional customer service applied to the act of digital kidnapping. When the affiliate breached the Colonial pipeline network, using that forgotten VPN account, they did not strike immediately. They spent days lurking silently within the corporate systems, mapping the network architecture, identifying critical servers, and meticulously locating the most valuable data. The primary objective in a modern ransomware attack is twofold. First, the attackers exfiltrate massive amounts of sensitive data. In this case, the DarkSide affiliate quietly siphoned nearly 100 gigabytes of internal corporate files, financial records, and operational data. This creates a secondary layer of extortion known as double extortion. Even if the victim can restore their systems from backups without paying the ransom, the attackers threaten to publish the stolen data on the open internet, risking massive regulatory fines, loss of trade secrets, and severe reputational damage. The second objective is the deployment of the encryption malware. Once the data was safely copied to servers controlled by DarkSide, the affiliate pulled the trigger. On the morning of May 7, 2021, the ransomware executed. In an instant, files across the Colonial Pipeline Information Technology Network were scrambled into unreadable ciphertext. Screens went dark, replaced by a digital ransom note demanding payment in cryptocurrency for the decryption key. The immediate reaction within Colonial Pipeline was one of triage and containment. The IT systems were locked down, but the critical question remained regarding the operational technology network. While there was no immediate evidence that the hackers had breached the industrial control systems governing the physical pipeline, the lack of visibility was terrifying. If the corporate network was compromised, could the attackers manipulate the flow valves? Could they alter the pressure sensors? Furthermore, with the billing and ticketing systems encrypted, Colonial had no way to track the fuel shipments. They could not bill their customers, nor could they guarantee the safe, coordinated delivery of the highly volatile product. Faced with this agonizing uncertainty, Colonial Pipeline executives made a drastic and unprecedented decision. They proactively shut down the physical pipeline. For the first time in its history, the main lines of the 5,500-mile artery ceased pumping. The Steel River stopped flowing. The ripple effects of the shutdown were immediate and severe. As news broke that the primary fuel supply for the East Coast was offline, panic set in among the public. It was a visceral demonstration of how heavily society relies on uninterrupted infrastructure. Across the southern and eastern United States, drivers flocked to gas stations, forming miles-long lines. Panic buying exacerbated the problem exponentially. People filled not just their vehicle tanks, but jerry cans, plastic storage bins, and incredibly, even plastic grocery bags with gasoline. This surge in artificial demand drained the localized reserves at gas stations within hours. Suddenly, thousands of stations were entirely out of fuel. The price of gasoline spiked to its highest level in nearly a decade. The disruption threatened to ground commercial flights, with several airlines having to reroute planes to make fuel stops. The incident escalated from a corporate IT crisis to an immediate matter of national security, prompting the White House to issue emergency declarations to waive restrictions on the transport of fuel by road. Behind closed doors, Colonial Pipeline's chief executive officer, Joseph Blunt, faced a grueling dilemma. The FBI universally advises against paying ransoms. Paying validates the business model of cybercrime, funds future attacks, and there is never a guarantee that the criminals will actually provide a working decryption key. However, Blunt was looking at the reality of a paralyzed eastern seaboard. Every hour the pipeline remained offline, the economic damage multiplied, and the public panic deepened. The company's internal backup systems were deemed insufficient or too slow to execute a timely recovery. Believing it was the only viable option to restore critical infrastructure and prevent a national crisis, Blunt made the highly controversial decision to authorize the payment. On May 8, just one day after the attack was discovered, Colonial Pipeline transferred 75 Bitcoin, valued at approximately $4.4 million at the time, to a cryptocurrency wallet controlled by DarkSide. Upon receiving the payment, DarkSide provided the decryption tool. However, the anatomy of ransomware recovery is rarely as simple as turning a key in a lock. The decryption software provided by the hackers proved to be agonizingly slow and cumbersome. It was poorly coded, requiring immense computational resources to run, and the process of unscrambling the vast amounts of encrypted corporate data was moving at a glacial pace. Colonial Pipeline found that utilizing their own internal, albeit slower, backup restoration processes in tandem with the decryption tool was necessary to bring their systems back online safely. It took nearly a week of round-the-clock work by cybersecurity incident response teams to secure the network, verify the integrity of the billing systems, and finally restart the physical flow of fuel. The pipeline resumed normal operations on May 13th, but the shockwaves of the incident continued to reverberate through the cybersecurity and intelligence communities. The narrative of the Colonial Pipeline hack could have ended there, as another grim statistic in the lucrative world of digital extortion. However, the audacity of the attack, crippling critical American infrastructure, provoked an aggressive response from the United States government. The FBI and the Department of Justice launched a massive investigative effort, focusing entirely on the financial anatomy of the crime. Cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, is often perceived by the public as entirely anonymous and untraceable. This is a profound misconception. While the identities of the wallet owners are hidden behind cryptographic addresses, the ledger of every single transaction, the blockchain, is public, immutable, and meticulously recorded. The FBI utilized advanced blockchain analytics to follow the digital breadcrumbs left by the DarkSide affiliates. Investigators watched the movement of the 75 Bitcoin. They tracked it as it was transferred from the initial payment address, split into smaller fractions, and bounced through a labyrinth of intermediate wallets in an attempt to launder the funds and obscure their origin. The goal of the criminals was to eventually move the Bitcoin to an exchange where it could be converted into traditional fiat currency, like Russian rubles or US dollars. However, law enforcement possessed tools and legal authorities that the hackers underestimated. The digital trail eventually led investigators to a specific cryptocurrency wallet address that was holding approximately 63.7 of the extorted Bitcoin. The critical breakthrough came when the FBI managed to obtain the private key to this specific wallet. The precise method by which the FBI acquired this private key remains classified. In the realm of cryptocurrency, the private key is the absolute cryptographic password required to control and authorize the movement of funds from a wallet. Without it, the Bitcoin is mathematically locked away. Theories surrounding how the FBI obtained the key range from utilizing human intelligence assets within the cybercriminal underworld to exploiting operational security failures by the hackers themselves. Some experts theorize that the hackers may have stored the private key on a server physically located in a jurisdiction cooperative with United States law enforcement, allowing the FBI to subpoena the hosting provider and seize the server's contents. Whatever the specific mechanism, the acquisition of the private key represented a monumental shift in the balance of power. Armed with this cryptographic authority, the Department of Justice executed a digital seizure warrant. In early June, less than a month after the ransom was paid, the FBI utilized the key to transfer the 63.7 Bitcoin out of the hacker's control and into a secure government wallet. Due to the fluctuating price of Bitcoin, the recovered amount was valued at approximately $2.3 million. This successful clawback operation was a watershed moment in the fight against ransomware. It demonstrated that the United States government possessed both the technical capability and the legal framework to pursue cybercriminals across international borders and disrupt their financial lifelines. It shattered the illusion of absolute impunity that many ransomware operators relied upon. The operation also sent a chilling message through the ransomware as a service ecosystem. Shortly after the seizure, the operators behind the DarkSide infrastructure abruptly announced they were shutting down their operations, claiming they had lost access to their servers, and their own funds had been drained. While it is common for cybercriminal groups to feign closure only to rebrand under a new name to evade law enforcement pressure, the disruption caused by the FBI's intervention was undeniable. The anatomy of the Colonial pipeline attack serves as a stark warning about the fragile nature of modern civilization. We have built a world dependent on hyper-connected physical infrastructure, yet we often secure the digital gateways to these physical systems with alarming negligence. The failure to implement basic cybersecurity hygiene, such as multi-factor authentication on an old VPN account, nearly brought an entire region of the country to a standstill. It highlighted the terrifying reality that the next major conflict or disruption may not come from a physical army, but from an anonymous actor sitting halfway across the globe, probing for forgotten digital side doors. The pipeline flows again, and the specific syndicate known as DarkSide may have fractured, but the vulnerabilities they exploited remain embedded in countless critical systems worldwide. The physical world is entirely tethered to a digital shadow, and that shadow is inherently vulnerable to those who know how to manipulate the code. This has been Anatomy of Crime, where the truth is never simple, but always worth seeking.